What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here to examine X-Men issue 128, brought to you by these people. This is the conclusion of the Proteus storyline. When I started reading this issue, I was afraid it was going to be dragged out for another issue. As I got into this one, I was thinking, this seems like a really good place to wrap it up. And I didn't hate this story as much as I did the last time I read it. I still have some of the same problems that I did the last time. I still feel like Proteus is way too powerful for the Marvel Universe. There are a few characters in the Marvel Universe who are incredibly powerful, probably on the same levels as Proteus, but I still maintain that he feels more like a DC villain in the Marvel Universe. I also do wish that he was portrayed a little bit more like a human being. In this issue, Colossus kind of justifies killing Proteus by saying, "You are pure evil." So even though Colossus says that he mourns for the death of Proteus, he seems to kind of justify what needs to be done because Proteus does not show an ounce of humanity. And I do think with the way this was all set up, with Proteus being kept in a prison for his entire life by his own mother, and yes, she did it for a good cause, but with that setup, I think they could have gone in a very interesting direction, where Proteus is basically just a scared kid who just wants his mom to love him and not keep him in a prison, and then he goes out and he's hungry and he is going to die if he doesn't possess these people. That could have been an interesting direction, but then that might have made the X-Men seem too villainous in having to put this kid down because he poses a danger to everyone else on Earth. Not a whole lot happens here, but I am really happy that we get to see most of the X-Men get to have a moment. At one point, Banshee, he shoots at Proteus, and then he is thrown into a pit, and then Nightcrawler has to rescue him from the pit. At one point, Wolverine saves Storm. And then later, Storm, she saves, or earlier, I think, maybe, she saves some civilians. And so, each member of the team gets something to do in this issue. This isn't just Colossus is one of the only ones who has metal on him, and so he's one of the only ones who can take care of Proteus. It's not just the Colossus show for this issue. Everybody has something, and I really like that. And I'm sure I can point to other issues that are a lot like that as well, but a lot of times when you think of the X-Men, it kind of seems like this is an issue where Nightcrawler is the one that we're really going to focus on, and everybody else just kind of falls to the background, and that's not what this issue does, so I really like it. Once again, Banshee is complaining to himself about how he doesn't have any powers and he can't do anything to help Moria, and I'm pretty sure this will be one of the last times that we see him complain about that. If I'm not mistaken, if you have the trade paperback collection of the Dark Phoenix saga, or at least the one that I had some 15 years ago or more, if you have that collection, I believe issue 129 is the beginning of what was often collected in the Dark Phoenix saga trade paperback, and I believe that will be where Banshee says, I'm going to stay here at Muir Island with Moria. Farewell, X-Men. It's been fun. So it has been dragged out for about 10 issues now, where Banshee lost his powers, and then he keeps saying to himself, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't help the X-Men. And I remember thinking from the first time I had read through this run that that didn't last as long. I was kind of surprised this time through that it took a lot longer for Banshee to leave the team after he lost the use of his powers. But Colossus ends up being the one who has to kill Proteus. Proteus loses the use of his father's body. It kind of crumbles to dust, and so Proteus, in his energy form, he tries to possess Peter Rasputin, and then Peter turns into his Colossus form, and that ends up killing Proteus. We will see Proteus at least 2 more times. I know in the early 90s he showed up. This would have been like right after Claremont left. I think it would have been in the X-Men annuals at that time. I know he shows up then, and then he shows up maybe 3 more times. He shows up a few times here and there. He's not like a Magneto or Mr. Sinister level villain who shows up that often, but he will show up a few more times. In fact, when Scott says, is Proteus still around, Jean says there are trace elements of him. So even though Colossus says, yeah, I took care of it, he's still kind of hanging around right here. And I am surprised that Colossus Colossus isn't more torn up about this. Several issues ago, around the Moses Magnum issue and a little bit before, there was Colossus was kind of feeling like he wasn't pulling his weight around the X-Men, and that wasn't really something I had noticed a lot, so I feel like that was more in his head than what he thought. But this will almost certainly put an end to that. He was able to defeat a nearly godlike being who threatened all of humanity and all of the planet. But I do feel like this sweet, innocent farm boy should be a little bit more broken up about killing somebody, even if he did it to save all of Edinburgh and beyond that, the world. I feel like he should be very broken up about having to murder somebody. I'm kind of surprised that they didn't have Colossus take a few issues to go back to visit his family and kind of gather his thoughts on if he wants to keep being an X-Man. That seems like a no-brainer choice to go, but we got to get into the Dark Phoenix saga, which is the next big storyline, so I guess they didn't have room for that. But that is something I'm very surprised that they didn't do something with that, even just for one issue, just having Colossus kind of mope around and wonder if he wants to still be with the X-Men. I'm kind of surprised they didn't do something like that. But that is about all that happens here. We do get a brief moment where Cyclops and Havoc accidentally blast each other with their powers, and Cyclops mentions that that did hurt, but their powers don't really work on each other. And this might be the first time that we have seen any instance of that. I believe around the point when Eric the Red had control of Havoc and Polaris, Cyclops was able to use his powers on Havoc at one point. I think it was either then or it was when Havoc was first introduced around the time of the Living Pharaoh storyline. I'm not going to go back and look for where it was, but in one of those stories, they hadn't yet come up with the idea that these two, that their powers are, that they're immune to each other's powers. But here, Cyclops says, while he could feel it, that they are immune to each other's powers, and that will be kind of a thing that we will see in later issues that feature these two. So that's about it for this issue, so let's consider this one Examine.